Okay, the topic today is the KJV and Calvinism. I'm often told and more often read that the translators of the King James Bible were Calvinist. Well, they of the Church of England might have been, however, the majority of the content of the King James Bible was produced originally by William Tyndale, and he is specifically described as a Calvinist, a high Calvinist. So, what do we do as users of the King James Bible? And let's say, what does that mean we have to be Calvinist? Well, I would say, first of all, that William Tyndale appeared to be true to the text first, and then perhaps he might have been biased toward what people describe as Calvinism. I know he didn't call it that because I think John Calvin wasn't born until 1509, maybe something like that, and his translation work preceded that. So don't know if we could go backwards and do that. But let's look at the 1611 King James edition. If you don't have one of these, they're very inexpensive. I have the 400th anniversary edition. I got it for $4 at Walmart. No one wants these things. So let's look at John chapter 20 and verse 31. It says, but these are written, now it literally says, but these are written, that ye, and ye has two E's, might believe, and believe is B-E-L-E-E-U-E. So the U appears to be the V today, or our V is the U then. That Jesus, and it's I-E-S-U-S, Jesus, just like in the Greek text, is the Christ, the Son of God. Son is spelled S-O-N-N-E. It's very easy to read this 1611. If you ever hear someone say they use 1611, they might actually be using it like I'm doing right now. So it says here, Son of God, and that believing, and it's B-E-L-E-E-U-I-N-G, but now it has believe and then believing, I-N-G, in the 1611. You might have life through his name. Okay, so let's 1611. This is John 20, 31 in the 1611, actual 1611, it says 1611 on it. It says believe, it's two E's, a U and an E, and it says believing. Here we go. So we've got believe and believing, 1611 in John 20, 31. And now let's go to the 1796. Now that's what I'm told. This is 1796, and I've always called this my King James Bible. So I don't know what that means. I have found a website, a source that discusses the 1796, I guess. And it says, but these are written that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through his name. So class, pay attention. That is Cornell University. I don't talk to the world disrespectfully, but this says believe and then believing. So we have the believe and ing. Now that's very emphatic and highly emphasized in the Koine Greek text. So it appears that the KJV 1611 and the 1796, I don't know. I've never evaluated these two. This is literally the 1611, and it can literally easily be read, and you can take this to your pulpit. So anyway, I'll look at this. I'm sure someone's done this work. But for me, I haven't done that work. So now let's go to the New King James Version. New King James Version. And this is easy to do, class, but this is about Koine Greek. It's about hermeneutics, apologetics. It's about language-based outreach and apologetic ministry. So John 20, verse 31. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, Son of God, and that believing. Okay, so the New King James, John 20:31, has believe and believing. And this is a finite verb, and this is a participle. And this is about Calvinism. And this is how would we evaluate this and what would we do. And this is, as I said, a user of the King James English Bible, and as a user of Biblical Hebrew and Koine Greek, the sources from which original meanings are derived, and the kinds of action that are emphasized in those languages that help understand what was being emphasized. So when I look up an English word from the Bible, English Bible, which it's okay to call it the Bible, it's okay, then I know what, if it's a noun, what the noun means and what it's always meant from the time it was given us. And I also know what kind of action is being emphasized. So now, it doesn't mean other people do that. It just means people can do that. And I've really never heard of anyone saying why a user of the King James shouldn't be interested in kind of action. It solves a lot of disputes. So 1 John 5:1. Let's go to 1 John 5:1. 1 John 5:1. Okay. Now remember, this is hermeneutics, apologetics. It's a rationale. We're using the language as a determinant to help us understand. And we're talking about the KJV and Calvinism. So we know William Tyndale was not a Calvinist because he would not have, any more than John Calvin would recognize what Calvinism has become. So let's see here. This says, whoever believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God, and everyone who loves him who begot also loves him who is begotten of him. So they say whoever believes, 1 John 5:1, New King James Version. So 1 John 5:1. Now I'm just looking at the first part, 1 John 5:1a, just to kind of keep this piece. I'll do the rest of it in different parts. So it says believes. Punctular action. Okay. Now that's not what it is, though. When you look that up, it's whoever is believing. It's a participle. It's a gerundive noun. It's present tense, always believing. Now that's a big deal in the Koine text. So let's go back to 16:11, 1 John 5. Here we go. 1 John 5, verse 1. Whosoever believeth that Jesus is the Christ. Okay, so they have believeth. And let's go to 16:11. Believeth. There, it's got that eth on the end of it. Now let's go to we got believes, believeth. Now let's look at our 1796, which is the one I've probably always used my whole life, but anyway. Okay, yeah, it's believeth. Okay, so it's believeth. There. So now, readers, students, especially here at Koine University, which is a branch of the IamKoine.org Apologetic and Outreach Ministry, Koine University, we are very glad to engage the text, happy to support it. We're good. So at this moment, we notice something very unusual. We have in our King James Bible, 1611 and 1796, we have believe, believing, and believeth. So we have three ways of expressing this, And something I can tell you is this believeth is used for both believe and believing. So you get to look that up. Somebody said we have to look all that up. Well, it won't. It'll be the same number of words. So when you finally look up critical passages that speak about what is in dispute today, because people say you can't believe or that regeneration precedes faith, but they don't say whether faith is a noun, is it a finite verb, or is it the participle, which refers to the person. You say, well, people don't talk like that. Well, then why the big deal about Calvinism and being such an anti-Calvinist if people don't have the energy to actually concern ourselves with what's in dispute? So if someone tells someone like me that regeneration, the new birth, precedes faith, then class, what would you ask? Regeneration precedes faith. Well, faith, that's a noun in the statement, but is it referring to a noun? Is it referring to the finite verb or to the participle? So, when we look this up, it's actually believing. And we see that in the King James 1611, they use believing, ing, in both cases. And this was one word that was, I guess, it was in transition where it was still being used so that you could use it. So this one's honest by using something that is used for believing. You just need to look it up and get to look it up. Now, once you look it up, you'll always know that 1 John 5:1 is believeth, and 1 John 5:1 is referring to believing, and it's a participle just like John 20:31. So now what do we know? What can we know from this? That this is believing, ing. Now, why did they translate this believes? Well, I wouldn't know why. The grammar in 1 John is so simple, so elementary, that is, elemental in the level of even Koine Greek, that somewhere in your second year of grammar school in Greek, maybe by your into your third semester, maybe you're told to just go to 1 John and start translating, because you've covered present tense, you've covered the perfects, you have enough vocabulary, you have enough lexicography and mastery of it. You know the three different classes of nouns. You know about masculine, feminine, and neuter. You know about the aorist tense, present tense. You've learned enough so that there's not enough in 1 John. It's only 105 verses, if I remember. And then it's so repetitive. So it's probably the most elementary. So why would this not, in a New King James Version, show something that a very early student who hasn't even advanced to a graduation or a graduate level from an undergraduate seminary level be able to do? Well, it's not believes punctular, it's believing, it's a participle. And to wrap up our lesson, and I do recommend you get your 1611, and if you want to use it for study, your New King James Version. This is not mine. It was well, it was given to me, I'll just say that, but I never sought one, never needed one, never even looked for one. But now that I see it's very instrumental in study, then you can place between these. This is an extra large print because when I'm preaching, I got to be able to see it. So here I have a 1611, the 1796, and then the New King James Version. But back to King James Bible and Calvinism, what do we know? Well, we know now that the gospel precedes. We have the gospel first, so that's established. We then have the finite verb believe. Now I don't mean in any order with these up here. So then we have, after that we have believe, the finite verb believe. There we go. And then we have believing. There. And what goes here, class? Well, in 1 John 5:1, when you look that up, when it says it's born of God, it says that prior to being this one, this is a gerundive noun. This is the believer, gerundive noun. Or some people call it a verbal substantive. And it's a participle. There we go. Now, it says that prior to this person, they have the one who is always believing, was previously fathered, has been fathered, perfect tense, has been fathered, and then of course it has continuous action. It's passive voice, and it's got continuous action. So this is past 100%, 100% in the past fathered, and presently is a continuation of being fathered, passive voice. So it's passive voice continues, which is God fathering this believer. And that's why we're always believing, because he's always fathering. So this says, from the text, from the grammar, being fair, let's look up the NKJV, let's use our 1796, let's look at our 1611. And it appears that bias toward regeneration precedes believe punctular has started to creep in, which is it's harmless if you study. And if you use your King James, which when I say it, I've now learned that this is the one I'm referring to, apparently. So, and now I'm looking at this one to start including. I want to do a whole series on apologetics just using the King James 1611. So that's enough for now. Enjoy the lesson. But if you use a King James Bible, there's no support for regeneration precedes faith, and you can use these texts.